From ContainerDays Hamburg, this video is proudly presented by DAX IT.
Today, this time I came to this stage. It's my third or fourth time at ContainerDays. It's an amazing community. But
for me, it's the first time.
Yes, and Metin, we had last year, we met here and someone invited us to talk on a podcast, focus on DevOps. And because we found it worked so well spontaneously to talk about these topics, moving from the strategical part down to the operationalization of these strategies, we said, yeah, why not bringing our ideas here to stage? So, Metin, can you tell us something about you?
Of course I can. I'm Metin. I'm roughly 20 plus years in IT. I did almost everything, every role that is part of developing software or deploying software. And yeah, since 3 years, I'm one of the enablement coaches at Deutsche Bahn, and I'm one of those people that help our delivery teams to get how to use our platform properly, so they avoid all the pitfalls that might be possible and start off in a perfect way.
Yeah, and I would summarize: Metin is a wizard on bringing people to effectively work with the platforms. I myself, I'm also at the Deutsche Bahn since 6 years in different roles, from DevOps engineer to product owner, and now as consultant on strategy and platform enablement. I hope you enjoy our talk. So the core of our talk is, of course, our business. And the business of the Deutsche Bahn is rail operations. And as you may know, if the trains are not working, many of you would, for example, not be able to arrive to this conference. How many of you came by train with the Deutsche Bahn? That's the large majority of our public. Great. And I did make this joke once, but how many of you came on time? Very good. I will not comment this for the streaming, but yes. So you see, this is critical infrastructure. This is classified as critis, the rail transport. And this brings with it additional security and governance compliance requirements. So developing IT for the Deutsche Bahn is not the same as developing IT for a startup or for some e-commerce shop. You really have stronger security needs, and you really need to care for it. So this leads to making software development sometimes slower, especially as teams need to cope with a lot of cognitive overhead to address the increasing governance requirements. And on this talk, particularly, we are addressing one specific aspect, which is the convergence or the standardization of our IT landscape. And this is one of the approaches precisely to increase the compliance of and the hardening of our IT landscape. And we want to show how this strategy then, especially with Metin, with our wizard, he will tell us how we actually operationalize it on the field. But before we move there, let me tell you, this is our current model. So there is an effort to consolidate this landscape, and one of the pillars that where this is settled upon on the enterprise architecture is that we have established technological foundations. So while we have a lot of domain knowledge for implementing from the different business. So the Deutsche Bahn is a big company with many subsidiaries and business areas. So, and each one is expertise on its own area. But if we would allow that every domain and every business area would build their own IT, then we end up with a very atomized IT landscape. And so the idea of the foundations is precisely that we have common pillars on which things can build upon, and keeping standards and high quality, and releasing the developers from their very high cognitive overhead. One of these keys for this is this developer experience platform, which is also the core of the activity of this platform enablement. And this platform, so we have, of course, a strategy that builds upon our main cloud providers and partners, which are currently AWS and Azure. And this developer experience platform builds then with using cloud native standards, a set of tools that is able to address the different phases of the software development lifecycle. So it starts by the planning. And you see there is the possibility here to gather requirements both on what needs to be built, what needs to be tested, and planning this. Then you move to the part of code, and here we want to achieve that there is a clear governance on which code there is, that the code is placed on one common instance so that you can have, for example, inner source practices, that code security and quality is checked for, that there are no secrets landing in code, and so on. Then we have the build phase, where you are basically creating your artifacts and checking also if they follow the compliance aspects regarding to it. The tests, different types of testing, where possible also automated testing, and then you move on to the deployment. You can use infrastructure as code and parts. You can deploy to a container environment. And then you have the operation. And the operation, what is important then is that you also consolidate, for example, the observability across the different landing zones that you are using. So you may be using a Kubernetes cluster. You may be using AWS resources. But you want, as an application, to have a common overview of this. And so this platform is, let's say, an important part of precisely this, one of these foundations, the development operations. And we try to orchestrate this platform then over a series of tools and templates. And we have actually noticed that it brings benefits, but sometimes teams are not really joining it. So they have, as it is, teams have requirements. They get their contracts with the customers, which in our case mostly are the partner companies at the Deutsche Bahn. But there's always things to do. Well, your trains need to arrive on time, and everyone is working for that. And sometimes the things on the background that actually could make you faster, they are left to a lower priority because we are too busy. And this is where the role of something like a platform enablement team comes also into play. So the platform enabled team, we see it as basically an interface between platform developers, so the teams that are actually developing the platforms, and their users, mostly developers, operators. And often, well, platform development teams and the personnel is, of course, very capable of interacting with the users and explaining them, but they are also limited in their capacity. They need to focus on developing their product. They need to focus on making sure the services are working. And so the users have difficulty to come to it. Furthermore, while the documentation at the moment is also already pretty good for most of these platform services, it often tends to be very technical and not use case specific. So if you are an expert user and you know these technologies, then you may be able to learn by yourself. But if you are new to it, or you have used other practices for your development and operations, then maybe you need a starting guidance to go on this. And so the platform enablement offerings that this team, that our team has created, it goes from consulting, so which platforms may be appropriate for my cases, in which direction I can go. Enablement, platform enablement is the main business. But there's also contributions to platform development. So for example, if a user comes with a need and we see, okay, that we could contribute a template to our CI/CD tooling, then we may also do this type of contributions or help articulate platform teams to better understand the requirements that are coming from the users. And further is that we also provide support on architecture and engineering for building the applications. And the main business, which is the enablement, is actually very simple. And sometimes simple is just beautiful. And it starts with a short alignment, 1-2 hours. We go with the teams. A team contacts us and says, we would like to make more platform, use more platform. And then we understand their case. We identify one possible use case. And then we go on the enablement with them. Usually 2-hour sessions once a week. And in total, our effort is around up to 8 working days. So it can be a short enablement, it can be longer, but usually we don't go more than 8 days. And because the idea is that it's also quick and we can enable as much teams as possible, and it's a kind of knowledge transfer. Meeting will go more in detail to it, so I'll jump it. And of course, at the end, feedback. Feedback loops are always important. You know this in any system, so we also take some time then to gather the feedback. And effectively, our enablement business was so successful that we noticed in one of the programs that we did, and we were making this evaluation before and after, that we had over 20% efficiency increases in the teams that got enabled by us. And this generated, of course, attention. Everyone wants to increase efficiency. We had the request to create some form of KPI to understand the adoption of the developer experience platform. And so we developed this, so we looked at, first of all, which data did we have, and we had a lot of data coming from another tool from our platform, which was a Git repo scanner, which is able to identify which components are in use in each repository, and build a KPI for these adoption levels. And where the lower level says, if you are level 0, then you don't have repositories associated with your application and your team. Level 1, you are having a very basic usage. So for example, you may use Git, not SVN anymore, but Git. And then level 2 and 3, then you start using CI/CD pipelines, maybe use the standard templates, and at some point you have test automation. And the idea is, of course, to move as much teams as possible to the higher levels. And so there's also, there was developed this dashboard, which is basically a Backstage plugin. So most of you probably have already heard about the Backstage IO. And it's really simple to build such a plugin. And when you have the data, then you can make nice things. And it was for us also important to make, because we are an agile organization at this DB system, and to really empower teams. So we wanted not only to have a kind of management controlling your adoption, but rather saying, look, you can manage your own adoption. You can look at your values. You can see which components you are using where, and how you are reaching a certain level. And of course, we also build feedback possibilities so that you can tell us if you are using a standard and you say this is something also beneficial, then maybe we should also evaluate a further component that provides better scoring. And the idea is to further develop this. So I'll give right to Metin, but before, there's a nice example why we need platform enablement. And sometimes things are not complete, but we have a wizard. So, and this is like how we work sometimes. You see, there's something missing, but still we are able to reach our purpose
still somehow works. Yeah.
So I talked enough. Metin, it's your time to get to the tails and to the nice stuff.
Thank you very much, Walter. So let's dig into it. The platform enablement team with the sole purpose of enabling delivery teams within the Deutsche Bahn, was founded in 2023. So it's a relatively young team. And we already had 120 teams that we enabled in that time frame. And I want to share some insights about some experiences we gained while enabling teams. So let's start off. Oh, don't expect any architecture slides or text. This is going to be pictures only, and I'm going to provide the story. So this is one of the successful enablements. It was a development team that approached us because they had 60 different pipelines, which consisted of 7 different pipeline types. So they had pipelines in Python, in TypeScript, in Java, some for front end, some for back end. Some created OCI images, some created just libraries, and some packaged lambdas. And of course, the maintainers that created those pipelines already left the team, and the rest of the team had close to no experience on how to maintain those pipelines and was quite challenged on adding new features or fixing those pipelines. Additionally, this team created and maintained their own base images. Of course, they did it with some sort of pipeline, but dependency and patch management was a manual thing. And generally, for this team, dependency and patch management, like I said, was done manually. And they didn't completely implement every compliance requirement that they should have done. So they came to us and asked us for support. So what we did with them was we helped them to migrate their pipeline types to our own pipeline library, which is called Pipeship. Pipeship is a marketplace of pipeline template fragments, from fragments to end-to-end pipeline solutions, and we helped them to adapt their pipeline types to Pipeship. Then we replaced the base images with inner source images, which are permanently maintained by our inner community, which are permanently patched. Then we help them to introduce Renovate, so they don't have to bother with dependency and patch management themselves anymore. And while doing that, we educated them on how to navigate the documentation of the platform they used, specifically when it came to the pipeline part and the secret management in the pipeline part. And as a result, we're not there yet. The beginning was quite hard. When we started over the Java pipeline, it took roughly around 4 sessions. In the beginning, we started with 4-hour sessions, but realized quickly that it exhausted the participants and us, so we reduced them to 2-hour sessions. And the first pipeline was kind of hard and kind of steep learning curve with the team. And the good thing is they were able to apply the knowledge they learned in the first pipeline we did together to all their other pipeline types. So the other sessions were more or less about asking questions, how to solve this, there is a problem there, how do we address this? And it was beautiful to see that they absorbed what we taught them and were able to apply it themselves. And it went so far that at the end of their sessions, I permanently asked them, how would you approach this problem? And their response was exactly the response I would have given. So, in the last sessions, I always ask, are you sure that you still need me? Because you people are able to do whatever I would have done, and it looks like you don't need me anymore. I still continued to help them in their sessions, and it was a huge success because this team now has documented pipelines, they are compliant. It is easier to onboard new team members because the whole team now took the ownership of the whole pipeline world. What else is there? They have a reduction in workload because they don't have to maintain their pipeline anymore, because they based on our pipeship products. They don't have to take care of their images anymore, except they need to add new features. So overall, it was a nice experience, and we succeeded in our mission, which is knowledge transfer. So we have the next one. This is a rather standard enablement. I always call it pipeship on our shared managed Kubernetes platform. And this was a functional team that developed Python scripts to remotely maintain network devices across all the company. So a 5-digit number of devices, and they ran the payload on compute nodes at a cloud provider and wanted to get rid of the manual labor and wanted to automate as many things as possible and wanted to use managed services to operate their payload. So with this team, we helped them to migrate to our managed shared Kubernetes clusters. We helped them to onboard with their pipelines. We helped them to create custom images that are able to run there because our managed clusters run on OpenShift. Whoever ran payload on OpenShift with a restricted profile knows there are some pitfalls like read-only file system, like arbitrary user IDs, like dropping all the capabilities, and the arbitrary user IDs were per namespace. So it was a no-no to hard encode those things in the Docker file. We made it run. Then we assisted them to create Helm charts that deployed Kubernetes cron jobs. And what I liked about this enablement is that this team was so eager to learn and apply things on their own that they complained when I did the usual pair programming or pair configuration approach I do with a lot of other teams. They were more like, let's discuss implementation alternatives, let's discuss the options, let's discuss what issues we might run in, and please just give us link to documentations or to demo implementations. We will do it on their own. So that was a pretty great experience. These guys were able to navigate and use the platform services pretty much on their own. So next one. That's a rather odd enablement session. This was a DevOps team that ran their own data center and wanted to migrate from their on-prem data center to our cloud platform and to our platform services. They wanted to have as many managed services as possible, leverage as many platform services as possible. And these guys were actually wizards in what they did because they managed everything in their data center, including everything related to application development, like their own Git servers, their own artifact repositories. And those guys were brilliant. They just had one thing that was special. Their payload was running on Docker Swarm. So what we did with this team was we helped them to plan the migration from the data center. We helped them to create concepts on how to migrate their databases. Those are 2-digit terabyte-sized databases that needed migration. We helped them to create appropriate Helm charts, even though creating Helm charts is not really the core of our business. We assist and give hints, but they have to actually do it. And what's really uncommon about this is that it was more an on-demand enablement. So they basically were able to navigate the documentation themselves, tackle most of the problems themselves. And usually when they required assistance, it was usually, again, because of OpenShift and because Docker or Docker Swarm user is not used to a read-only file system, not used to arbitrary user IDs. So this was quite a challenge with them. Yeah, and the special thing about them is in this enablement, the coaching wasn't a one-way. It was not a one-way street. It was a two-way street. I learned a lot of nice tricks from them.
Now we come to the interesting part, no?
Yeah.
When are you not able with your wizardry to help the teams?
Yeah, sometimes you can be the biggest wizard, but things still might not work out. So we already have components for a lot of things, but still sometimes migrating to the platform might fail, or might fail partially, or might be impossible at all. So the first one is about missing platform support. It was with a C++ team that developed C++ libraries and still had their repositories on SVN. And of course, they wanted to automate everything and wanted to leave their manual labor approach. I mean, they had scripts to build, test, and deploy the stuff, but I still consider that this is manual. They wanted to automate everything, and on top wanted to ensure that all compliance assistance they can get throughout our pipeline, our standardized pipeline offering can be leveraged. So what we did with them, we helped them also on our managed shared Kubernetes environment. We helped them create, customize the pipelines as they need them, because they needed a special job image, which of course provides the C++ tooling and precise versions of all the precise dependencies they require to build and test their tools. Oh, I forgot to mention that we migrated them to Git. That was, of course, the first step. Then we created the pipeline, the images, and helped them to build up a pipeline that helped them to automatically build and test. The release pipeline still requires them to start a pipeline job that creates tags and deploys their payload as commit in a different repository as release. And this part went really well. What didn't go so well is one of the main objectives was they wanted to have static application software testing embedded in their pipeline. We do have offerings, and the mandated offering for C++ didn't really work well because their code has special encodings due to, I don't recall the reason, but it was impossible for them to change to UTF-8. And because of that, the scanner threw a lot of false positives and basically said your code can't compile, even though it did. And as a result of that, the reports that were uploaded to the management UI of the SAS scanner, they provided no information. So we failed and provide a good solution there. Then we thought, okay, we have an alternative SAS solution that is used for almost every other programming language. Let's give it a shot, let's implement it, and failed there as well because there is no job image available that would run with C++ or a pipeline module that would leverage the easy use of this component. So generally, it was a success. When it comes to the SAS scanner, we failed. We still need to identify the proper solution for them.
Metin, we still need to go to the last findings, so maybe you can make the last fail short, that we show what, from your experience with over 40 developments, 40 enablements a year, what are patterns that we identify? So if you could make it quickly because of time. We don't have the time of an enablement session, unfortunately, here. So.
Okay, that's true. So I will make this one quick. This is also a team that has that maintains remote network devices, and this team runs their whole tool set on compute nodes inside Docker, which is not a supported orchestrator. Oh, I forgot to mention Swarm is also not a supported orchestrator. And they wanted to migrate and have as many automation managed services as well. And we informed this team from the get-go that we assist or give hints when it comes to Docker files and Helm files, but don't solve them for them. And they tried to run non-cloud native open source software that run perfectly fine on Docker and OpenShift. So they ended up having to create for everything a custom image, had to bend a lot of things, and still things didn't really work that well. And for whatever reason, both sides didn't want to give up, because there is always the just this and then it will work. Yeah, and these guys needed fixed ingress IPs, fixed egress IPs, which could all be tackled. They required mutual TLS for client-server authentication based on certificates. That could be tackled well as well, but not as charming as one would expect. We had to introduce our own NLB for this team. We had to create their own reverse proxy due to the cluster policies. They were not allowed to bring their own ingress, which would have made things way nicer. And the final party breaker was when they said, okay, and now we want to have UDP messages coming from arbitrary sources to the shared cluster. And that's when we stopped the enablement. So this failed because the payload was not really suited to be run on our platform services. So this one is also quick. This is more general thing I experience sometimes in enablements when everyone is silent. Usually our sessions begin with the team asking question or asking question in between when I explain things. For some reason, this doesn't happen with every team, and teams that stay silent, either they understand everything and don't really require the enablement, or it's quite the opposite. And it's hard to make them to open up. And those teams, what I typically experience with those teams is when I ask the question, how would you approach this after the 5th, 6th session, they would respond with, do tell, without even trying, without even phrasing a thought how they would have tackled it. And usually those enablements are complicated because their main objective is a migration challenge of some sort. My main objective is knowledge transfer. Ideally, my objective helps them to achieve their objective, and sometimes it's possible that either one fails or that even both fail. Yeah, it happens sometimes. So, but now the good parts.
Yeah, exactly. So based on your fails and successes, on your experience, 40 enables you said per year around?
Roughly 40 per year. Yeah.
So you can already identify some patterns of what makes a successful enablement.
We can. So teams where the enablement sessions go really well, they usually have a very active engagement. So their project owner or manager gives them the time they need to actually do their work during the enablement. They do all the homeworks. They continue on working on the solution on their own. They usually engage in discussions when it comes to how do we solve and attack this problem. They usually bring questions to the sessions where they want to clarify things that they didn't completely understand. And they also cycle back when they think they thought they understood something but are not sure anymore. So that's the most important one, the active engagement. Then it's absolutely important that they know their stack. So if the team develops something in Python, I really need them to understand how to configure their frameworks, how to deal with a package manager, because I know the frameworks, and this is something that every team needs to master on their own. When they do, it's usually easier for the whole enablement. Then we have the self-learning teams that are able to navigate our documentation and use it on their own. Are usually that's what we usually see in successful enablements. And what we also see is that teams are not resistant against change, that they don't have the not invented here syndrome, where they say, our solution is superior, better, we always did it like this. So the team has to have an openness to remove or get rid of their solution and replace it by a standardized platform solution. Then another crucial point is that we have to have clear scoping, that we have to have clear use cases that we use as the migration challenge, that we specify them from end to end to have a clear scope and not have a scope creep that would enlong or prolong the enablement sessions indefinitely. So, and what we finally do is when when we did a use case together with the team and I assisted them in reaching the goal, is to ask them to adapt what they learned to one of a similar project and let them do it on their own, so we can identify whether they fully understand everything, if there are gaps in the understanding, so they can address those gaps, and we can straighten those out later on. So in my experience, the knowledge transfer is one of the important parts. If you don't do it, they might forget what you teach them. So
and when are you actually getting rid of the teams that you enable?
Do what?
Go to the next slide.
Go to the next slide. That's true. So when you realize that they respond to the question, how would you approach this? Always the way you would respond to it, they're ready, and then it's time to let them fly and to run on their own.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your stories, Metin, and I hope you enjoyed.
I did.
This was our presentation, and you are welcome to ask questions if the moderator allows us.
We unfortunately don't have. Thank you really with the applause. Maybe the second one, is Kubernetes running on the ICE yet? Maybe just a yes or no answer without explanation.
Is Kubernetes running on ICE yet? We always get this question. There are projects running Kubernetes on ICEs on some infrastructure, but it's not all Kubernetes. Yet.
Yeah.
And I think the other questions actually require more time to explain. Do you have a short answer about how did you choose your infrastructure providers and why they're not European?
Well, basically because the European providers still do not offer the capabilities. I cannot say much about this. This is a very complex process that of procurement, but the limitations of currently of European providers and probably related to that.
Thank you. Maybe you have some more discussions in the venue as well, because there were really many questions about your talk.
Yeah, thank you. So you are welcome to contact us for further questions. We are happy to answer them if we can. We cannot answer all questions that you have sent there, but
can at least give it a try.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
From ContainerDays Hamburg, this video is proudly presented by DAX IT.